like how often, or do you often work with particles, hair particles, or
No.
was that like the first time?
Um, Nearly the first.
Okay. So first of all, when working with particles, I know you have a relatively good rig. I don't know how good it is, but it certainly, you said once, it has two GTX 1080s, and I'm assuming you have probably 32 or 64 gigs of RAM, right?
Yeah, sure.
Um, and I think even with that rig, it will be way more comfortable for you to work um, with children instead of having actual particles.
I played around with children, but was not happy with it. So, particles in general is a thing that I'm very interested in, but a thing that I can't find any advanced tutorials. It's just so we press the particle systems button, now play around, and then have something like this or that.
Okay.
There is no tutorial which goes really into deepness. What, yeah, which settings are good for what? Yeah. So maybe
Okay.
we can dive a little bit into from from the start how to set up something like this.
So I made a copy of this, and I'm gonna free all of these. So this one is the main one that has the 20,000 particles. Let's set that to 2,000. So first thing is, when you look at the image and you go a little bit deeper into it, your hairs look like straw because they bend kind of like zigzags, right?
Mm.
And I don't know, do you know where to set up the divisions for it? Yes, no?
Um, Not really sure. Just show me what's the best way then.
Okay. So in geometry, you have in the render tab in geometry, you have how the hair is going to display, right? You right now you have it set to line segments, and
Uh-huh.
you have them as thick. Uh, you can have them as curve segments, and then you set the subdivisions of this curve, just like that. Then they treat it like as a Bezier.
Okay. No, I don't know about this
Okay,
setting.
so if you do that, you will get far smoother looking hairs, but only in the render, right?
Okay.
Within the preview itself, you won't see the difference. For that,
So these steps we can compare with if I have a Bezier curve
hmm,
and I click subdivide.
yes, that's
Okay.
exactly how it works. It's like subdivision for curves. I personally, because I like to conserve resources, especially when working within the preview, like just the 3D preview. I don't actually use high steps to preview this. I rather have a quick test render to see how the curves bend, the the hairs. But you can't do it from the viewport. You need to actually press F12 to render it to find out. And now let's see how you can set up the children. Did you do, I saw that you did simple, like this, right?
Mhm.
This is a problem because simple ones are really simple, so they clump around the real particle. If there's one hair here, it's gonna generate, 10 other ones around it in a space that you can control a little bit. So you can give it a very large radius. But what you will find out when you do that is that they also go off the side of the model.
Okay, this is not the best.
This is not very useful for hairs. It works when you have actual particles like in space. If you have like snowfall or something, it's fine to have one control particle and then a bunch of children, simple ones like this. But what I would use is interpolated, and then there's something called here a virtual parent. So let's set that to 1. And then they clump less. And then I would set this to nothing. In essence,
What is this kink setting?
the kink setting is how the children hairs deform into shapes. So they can, if you want to make curly hair, you have one really long strand, and then that's one particle strand, and then around it it generates 10 other strands, or 100 in the later render, but it curls it around this one strand. You understand what I mean?
Not
Not really.
sure, but
okay, so I'll try and explain it with just the plain. Hair. 1. And I want to keep it really long, so let's make the children interpolated. Make it like 100, because it doesn't matter at that length. So you see the hairs around the control particle, they start to wave and curl around it.
Okay.
And you can play with the frequency on like how many curls you want. How the shape looks, it's mostly about easing. And then you have, multiple of those, so you can have kind of a radial wave, a braid, which takes the particle and then braids it around these particles, braids them around this one control particle. And you can again tell it how much. So it's really just for if you're trying to roughen up the hairs a little bit. But for now, for just setting up the particle system in a way that that we can have a lot of really small hairs, I would just turn it off. And then unfortunately there's already settings here, and I don't really remember what they are normally. It should be 0, this should be 1. Should be 0. All of these also influence how you roughen up the hairs as well. So right now you have these virtual particles, they're all spaced equally. If we make them 100, you can see clearly how it's starting to look more like fur, right? But I can already see that you have issues here with the geometry. Do you know why? It's like a general question.
Could be the base normals.
You have an armature. Your modifier stack. The answer is the modifier stack. You have an armature which takes the base geometry, deforms it. With it, it deforms the normals because it has to. That's how armatures work. And then you have a particle system, and then you have subdivision, which means that the particle system is not resolved last, it's resolved second. So we need to move the particle system past the subsurf, and then it straightens it out. The setting for this is, here, use modifier stack as well. So it's always resolved last, and the normal is then always correct.
I see. Yeah, is the subdivision the last is as in front of the particles is clear to me. This wasn't, I haven't realized it.
Yeah, it's just, whenever I go and work with particles, it's always very frustrating because I always forget about this, and sometimes it's really, I sit there and I don't know why is this specific part here deformed into like some kind of weird shape, and the hairs make no sense, and then I realize that the particle system is like first, and then it gets deformed by the armature. But so this looks okay for now. If you wanted to roughen this up a little bit, you have this roughness parameter, and it's relatively, it depends on how long these hairs are, on how much it will affect it. You like to work to scale, so this is probably going to be a 0.2 to roughen this up a bit, maybe not, 0.1, like this. So now it's roughened up, but it's very uniform. So you have the uniformity setting we set to 1, and then we can fiddle with it with the random roughness, maybe 0.5, right? And then let's save this before anything crashes and give it the test render.